On the morning of March 21, 2024, in the outskirts of El Paso, Texas, the air still carried the faint chill of late spring. The pale sunlight stretched across the arid plains, illuminating an abandoned construction site that stood alone like a scar on the landscape. Once a bold venture by a real estate company, it had been forsaken for over a decade, leaving behind cracked concrete walls, overgrown weeds, and rusted steel beams jutting out like the claws of a forgotten beast. Henry Sullivan, a 45-year-old construction worker, arrived at the site with two friends, Tom Hayes and Jack Carter, to scavenge for scrap metal. With rising metal prices, Henry saw it as a chance to earn extra money for his family. Armed with crowbars, sacks, and an old flashlight, they began their search. As Henry pried up a broken concrete slab from the damp ground, he felt something odd. The soil beneath was loose and spongy, unlike the hard-packed earth he expected. "There's something here," Henry called out, his voice trembling slightly. Tom and Jack approached, curiosity in their eyes. When the slab was fully lifted, all three froze. Beneath a thin layer of dirt lay a human skeleton, stark white and cold, curled up as if clinging to itself. A tarnished silver bracelet still encircled a bony wrist, and tattered scraps of fabric clung to the ribcage. Tom stumbled back, nearly falling, while Jack let out a curse. Henry, though shaken, kept his composure. With trembling hands, he pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "We've found a skeleton at the abandoned site on FM 1281. Please come quick." Within 30 minutes, the site was swarmed with police cars, their sirens piercing the quiet plains. Forensic experts in white hazmat suits began their work as a crowd of curious locals gathered nearby, whispering theories. No one had imagined that this forgotten ruin hid such a chilling secret. Sergeant Laura Bennett stood a few meters from the scene, clutching a cold cup of coffee, her sharp eyes scanning the forensic team. With 15 years on the force, she'd seen her share of cases, but skeletons always stirred an unsettling feeling. This one intrigued her. Its bones were intact, positioned as if deliberately placed or hidden. Dr. Margaret Evans, the chief forensic examiner for El Paso County, carefully collected bone samples. "Female, aged 20 to 25, she said evenly. "Based on the femur length and pelvic structure, I'm fairly certain. The remains have been here at least 15 months, possibly longer, depending on soil conditions." Laura nodded, jotting notes. "Any unusual signs?" Margaret frowned, inspecting closer. "Nothing obvious. There's a small crack on the skull, but it could be from soil pressure. I'll need lab analysis to confirm." She pointed to the silver bracelet. "This is the only personal item. It's engraved with EW, likely initials." Laura ordered photos of the scene from every angle before the remains were moved. She knew small details like the bracelet could unlock the case. News spread fast. Mystery skeleton found at abandoned El Paso site. Locals speculated, accident, suicide, or murder. 3 days later, DNA results matched a missing persons report. Emily Watson, 22, reported missing on December 15, 2022. A community college student, Emily lived with her family in El Paso. Records showed she left home after a fight about dropping out and never returned. Her family had searched tirelessly, posting flyers and hiring a private investigator, but found nothing. Laura visited the Watson home to deliver the news. Susan Watson, Emily's mother, collapsed into a chair, tears streaming down her weathered face. Robert Watson, her father, stood silent, gripping the chair's armrest. "I knew she didn't just leave," Susan choked out. "I always felt she was close." After a week of investigation, the forensic team released their findings. Dr. Margaret Evans briefed Laura and the team. No clear signs of violence. The skull crack could be from natural soil pressure. Cause of death might be accidental. She fell into a pit and was buried by collapsing earth. Laura frowned. No footprints or blood. Margaret shook her head. "The scene's too old. Weather and animals disturbed it. We only found fabric scraps from her clothes. Nothing unusual." The police concluded Emily Watson died in an accident and closed the case. Her remains were released to her family for burial at St. Mary's Cemetery on March 28, 2024. The quiet ceremony had few attendees, but not everyone accepted the ruling. Ryan Parker, Emily's boyfriend, stood at a distance in the cemetery, his eyes bloodshot. He and Emily had dated for 2 years before she vanished. He recalled their last meeting, a cold night when she called, saying she needed time after arguing with her parents. Ryan had searched for her everywhere, to no avail. The accident conclusion stunned him. Accident? No way, Ryan muttered. He didn't believe Emily was that careless. Something was off, and he resolved to find out. On the night of March 28, 2024, Ryan drove his battered pickup to the abandoned site. The full moon cast light on the crumbled concrete walls. With a shovel, flashlight, and fierce determination, he refused to let the police's dismissal stand. Ryan reached the spot where the skeleton was found, now just flattened dirt. He dug, each shovelful driven by resolve. After nearly an hour, his shovel hit something hard. Kneeling, he brushed away soil, and his heart stopped. A small silver ring, half buried, glinted under his flashlight. Wiping off the mud, he saw "Forever" engraved inside, a gift he'd given Emily for their first anniversary. Why is it here? Ryan wondered. The ring wasn't on her skeleton's hand. It was meters away. If she'd died accidentally, it should have been closer, unless she'd been moved or tried to flee. Ryan pocketed the ring and stood, a gut feeling telling him he was nearing the truth. On the morning of March 29, 2024, Ryan stormed into the police station with the ring. "Reopen the case," he shouted at Laura Bennett. "Emily didn't die by accident. This ring proves it." Laura eyed him skeptically. "Where'd you find it?" "I dug at the site," Ryan said. "It was meters from her body." "Explain that." Laura sighed, examining the ring. She hated to admit it, but Ryan had a point. She called Dr. Margaret Evans and requested a re-exhumation, knowing it'd stir controversy. The next day, the forensic team returned to St. Mary's Cemetery. The Watsons protested, Susan sobbing, begging to let Emily rest, but Ryan stood firm. When the coffin was opened, Margaret found the skull crack wasn't from soil. It was from a forceful blow. "We were wrong," Margaret admitted. "This wasn't an accident. Someone attacked her." Laura turned to Ryan. "You were right. Now we need to find who did this." After the skull crack revelation in late March 2024, Sergeant Laura Bennett called an urgent meeting at the El Paso precinct. The air was tense as she scribbled on a whiteboard. "Missing, December 15, 2022. Body found, March 21, 2024. Cause, assault." She tapped her pen, scanning the team. "We messed up calling this an accident," Laura said. "The skull crack came from a blow. Someone attacked Emily and hit her body at the site." "What?" Ryan Parker sat in the corner, invited as a key witness. Not a cop, but his persistence had shifted the case. Laura saw his clenched fists, sensing his restrained anger. Dr. Margaret Evans added, "I rechecked soil samples around the body. There's a small fabric scrap, not Emily's, stained with dried blood. The sample's too small for immediate DNA, but it's at the Austin lab now." Laura nodded. "Good. While we wait, let's dig into Emily's life. Who saw her last? Did she have enemies?" Ryan spoke up. "I was one of the last to talk to her. On December 15, 2022, she called me, said she needed space. I thought it was just family drama, but now I recall, she mentioned a guy. 'He won't leave me alone,' she said. I asked who, but she wouldn't say." Laura focused on Ryan. "Anything else?" Ryan frowned. "She once talked about a co-worker at Brew Haven, where she worked part-time. A guy who harassed her. I don't know his name, but she said he scared her." Laura jotted down, "Brew Haven. We'll start there. Ryan, you're with me." On the afternoon of March 30, 2024, Laura and Ryan drove to Brew Haven, a cozy coffee shop on Mesa Street, El Paso. Its rustic charm, red brick walls, worn wooden tables, clashed with the pain it evoked for Ryan. He'd spent hours there with Emily, listening to her dreams of becoming an artist. The manager, Nancy Carter, recognized Ryan instantly. "You're Emily's boyfriend, right?" she asked somberly. "I heard the news. Awful." Laura flashed her badge. "Sergeant Bennett. We're investigating Emily Watson's death. Who worked with her in December 2022. Nancy led them to a back office, flipping through an employee log. "Emily worked here from summer 2022 until she vanished. Great worker. There was a guy on her shifts, Nathan Brooks. He was a troublemaker, always teasing people. I saw Emily get upset with him a few times." Ryan clenched his fists. "Nathan Brooks. Did he ever go too far? Nancy shrugged. Not that I saw, but Emily asked to switch shifts to avoid him. Once, I heard him tell her, "You can't get away from me." I thought he was joking. Laura noted the name. Does he still work here? No, Nancy said. He quit right after Emily disappeared, said he found another job. Laura and Ryan left with a name and a bad feeling. In the car, Ryan asked, "Think it's him?" "Maybe," Laura replied. "I'll check Nathan Brooks' record." On April 1st, 2024, results from the Austin lab arrived. Laura opened an email from Dr. Margaret Evans. The fabric has DNA not matching Emily's. The blood is O+, unlike Emily's A+. I'm working to recover more for a full profile. Laura called Margaret. If it's not Emily's blood, could it be the killer's? 90% sure, Margaret said. It's coarse cotton, maybe from a jacket. I suggest searching the site again. Laura organized a team to return to the site that afternoon. Ryan insisted on joining, despite her protests. This is police work, Ryan. I found the ring, Ryan countered. I deserve to know. Laura relented. The team arrived with metal detectors and K9 units. After hours of digging, Officer Peter Grayson shouted, "Got something." Beneath a meter of soil, they found a larger blood-stained fabric scrap. Laura examined it. Same material. Why is it here? Ryan stared, a memory surfacing. Emily said a guy grabbed her jacket once after work. She yanked free, and his coat tore. Maybe this is it. Laura nodded. If so, this ties the killer to the scene. Let's match it to Nathan Brooks. Laura researched Nathan Brooks. He was 25, with a record of disorderly conduct and a 2021 assault arrest. His last address was an East El Paso apartment, but he'd moved out in early 2023. Laura issued a lookout order. By evening on April 2, 2024, a patrol reported Nathan working at a garage on the outskirts. Laura and Ryan arrived to find him. Tall, messy blonde hair, greasy jacket, fixing an old car. He looked up as Laura showed her badge. Police. Nathan Brooks. We need to talk about Emily Watson, she said. Nathan smirked. Emily? Don't know her. Ryan lunged forward. Don't lie. She worked with you. She was scared of you. What did you do? Nathan sneered. You're crazy. I teased her a bit. She quit. I quit. End of story. Laura showed the fabric photo. This was near her body. It's got blood, and we're testing DNA. If it's yours, you're done. Nathan paled but stayed calm. I don't know anything about that. Laura had him cuffed and taken to the station. Ryan watched, torn between satisfaction and unease. If Nathan was the killer, why was he so composed? In the interrogation room, Nathan sat across from Laura, cuffed, avoiding eye contact. Laura placed Emily's photo on the table. She's dead, Nathan. Someone hit her and hit her at the site. You scared her last. What do you know? Nathan stayed silent, then sighed. Fine, I liked her. I teased Emily, but she overreacted. The night she vanished, I saw her outside the shop. She said she wanted quiet. I joked the site was perfect, but I didn't go with her. Laura raised an eyebrow. You expect me to believe you randomly mentioned the exact spot her body was found? Nathan shrugged. Believe what you want. I didn't kill her. Ryan, behind the one-way glass, slammed the wall. He's lying. Laura pressed, but Nathan clammed up. As she left, Margaret called. DNA on the fabric is partially recovered. It's not a full match to Nathan, but it's related. Maybe a family member. Laura glanced at Nathan through the glass. If not him, then who? She wondered, sensing the case growing murkier. Late on April 2, 2024, the interrogation room at El Paso PD was thick with tension after Nathan Brooks was released for lack of direct evidence. Sergeant Laura Bennett sat at her desk, staring at the latest DNA report from Dr. Margaret Evans. The DNA on the fabric didn't fully match Nathan, but showed genetic similarity, possibly a relative. Laura tapped her pen, piecing things together. Ryan Parker leaned against the wall, eyes bloodshot from sleeplessness. He'd stayed at the station all night despite Laura's urging him to rest. He knows something, I'm sure, Ryan rasped. He's lying about not going with Emily. Laura sighed. I agree he's not truthful, but we can't hold him on a hunch. The DNA's our best lead. If it's not him, it's someone in his family. She pulled up Nathan's file. Born in 1999 in El Paso, raised in a working-class home. Divorced parents, and an older brother, Michael Brooks, 3 years his senior, with arrests for theft and domestic violence in 2019. Michael had no fixed address, but in 2022, he'd worked at a warehouse near the site when Emily disappeared. Michael Brooks, Laura murmured. He had opportunity and maybe motive if he knew Emily through Nathan. Ryan approached, peering at the screen. What if Nathan took Emily there, but Michael did it? Possible, Laura said. We need to find Michael. I'll issue a warrant. On the morning of April 3, 2024, Laura led a team to the old warehouse near the site where Michael Brooks once worked. Now a pile of rust and rotting wood, it barely stood. The owner, George Harrison, sat in a cramped office, puffing a cheap cigar, his gravelly voice recounting. Michael was hot-headed. Worked here a few months in 2022, hauling freight. I fired him after he fought a co-worker over nothing. Laura took notes. When you last see him? Did he mention Emily Watson? George frowned, thinking. Not exactly. But he'd show up with his brother, Nathan. They argued a lot. Once, I heard Michael say, let me handle that girl. I figured it was about a girlfriend, didn't care. Laura and Ryan exchanged looks. Handle that girl echoed ominously. Ryan clenched his fists, holding back rage. Where's he now? He demanded. George shrugged. No clue. After I fired him, he vanished. Rumor is he's at a trailer park near the Mexican border. Laura thanked George, her gut telling her Michael was the missing link. Back in the car, she called for a border patrol sweep. Ryan sat silently, eyes blazing with resolve. That night, April 3, 2024, Ryan returned to his small El Paso apartment. The sparse room held Emily's watercolor paintings, soft strokes of plains and skies. He sank onto the sofa, clutching the silver ring, straining to recall her final days. A memory flickered. Late November 2022, a few weeks before she vanished, they sat in his truck outside Brew Haven after her shift. Emily was quiet, staring into the distance. Ryan, if something happens to me, will you look for me? She asked, voice shaky. Ryan chuckled, thinking it a jest. Of course. What's this about? Someone bothering you? She hesitated. There's a guy, not Nathan. His brother. He stares at me weird, like he's up to something. Yesterday, he waited outside, told me not to tell anyone. Ryan hadn't paid much attention then, dismissing it as a complaint. Now, he realized she'd been warning him. He slammed the table, cursing himself. Michael, he muttered. It's him. He called Laura immediately. Emily mentioned Michael. She was scared of him. He stalked her before she disappeared. Laura sighed over the line. All right, Ryan. We're hunting him. Call if you remember more. On April 4, 2024, patrol units located Michael Brooks at a rundown trailer park near the Mexican border, 40 miles from El Paso. Laura, Ryan, and 3 officers headed out at once. The park sprawled across barren land, littered with trash and abandoned cars, reeking of diesel and cigarette smoke. They found Michael in a rusted trailer, smoking at a plastic table. Taller than Nathan, with messy black hair and a scar down his left arm. He stood as police approached, but Laura drew her gun. Michael Brooks, hands up. We're here about Emily Watson. Michael smirked. Emily? Never heard of her. Ryan lunged, but Laura held him back. Don't lie. Ryan roared. She was terrified of you. What did you do? Michael shrugged, ice cold. I didn't do anything. If she's dead, not my problem. Laura showed the fabric photo. This was near her body. DNA links to your family. Explain that. Michael paled but stayed cool. Maybe Nathan's. We shared clothes. Laura ordered his arrest for questioning. As they drove back, Ryan glared at Michael through the car window, feeling he faced the man who took Emily away. In the interrogation room, Michael Brooks sat defiantly, arms crossed. Laura slapped a file on the table. Michael, you worked near the site where Emily was found. You knew her through Nathan. DNA on the fabric points to your family being there. Anything to say? Michael sneered. I knew Emily, sure. She worked with my brother. I saw her a few times, but I didn't kill anyone. The night she vanished, I was home with Nathan. Home with Nathan? Laura pressed. He says you weren't. Said you left after a fight. Michael tensed, then regained composure. He's lying. Ask him again. Laura stepped out, summoning Nathan back. Ryan, behind the glass, watched Michael, noticing a tear on his jacket sleeve, matching the fabric from the site. When Nathan arrived, Laura grilled them both. Nathan admitted they fought that night, and Michael yelled, I'll shut that girl up. But he swore he didn't know where Michael went after. Laura turned to Ryan. Their stories clash. I think Michael's the mastermind, but we need solid proof. Ryan nodded, eyes fierce. I'll find it. For Emily. Late on April 4th, 2024, the El Paso precinct buzzed despite the hour. Laura Bennett and Ryan Parker stayed, fluorescent lights casting shadows over scattered files and crime scene photos. Michael Brooks remained detained, but conflicting statements stalled the case. Laura knew current evidence wasn't enough for a conviction. We need something concrete, Laura said, rubbing her temples. A weapon, a witness, or clearer traces at the scene. Ryan stood. I'll go back to the site. If Michael hit Emily there, he might have left something we missed. Laura frowned. Ryan, you're not a cop. I can't let you risk it. Emily's worth the risk, Ryan replied, unwavering. Laura relented, assigning officers Peter Grayson and Amy Foster to join. The small team drove to the site under a starry sky, headlights slicing through the dark. They brought high-powered flashlights, a metal detector, and a camera. Ryan guided them to where he'd found the ring. If Michael hit her, he used something, he said. A rock, a bar, anything that'd leave a mark. They dug and searched. After nearly 2 hours, Amy called out, found it. Beneath rubble 10 meters from the body's location, she uncovered a rusted iron bar, half a meter long, its end crusted with dark, dried blood. Laura held it under the light. If this is the weapon, we can test for DNA and prints. Send it to the lab now. Ryan stared at the bar, heart pounding. He felt closer to the truth. The iron bar reached Dr. Margaret Evans' lab that night. On April 5, 2024, she called Laura, voice tinged with excitement. Jackpot. The bar has dried blood, O+, matching the fabric DNA. There's a faint fingerprint, enough to run. Laura gripped the phone. Whose? Michael Brooks, Margaret said. From his 2019 domestic violence arrest. Perfect match. Laura rallied the team and prepared to confront Michael. Entering the interrogation room, she saw his defiance waver as she placed the bar's photo on the table. We found this at the site, Laura said coldly. Emily's blood and your prints. What now? Michael stiffened, then smirked. All right, I was there. But I didn't kill her. She fell. I just hid the body. Laura tilted her head. Hid the body? You expect me to buy that you were just there when she died? Michael shrugged. Believe it or not, I wasn't alone. Laura narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? Who else was there? Michael looked down, silent. Laura knew he was hiding more, but she had enough to charge him with murder and concealment. She ordered him held for trial, though his last words lingered. I wasn't alone. With Michael detained, Laura reinterrogated Nathan Brooks on April 5, 2024. If Michael wasn't solo, Nathan might know something. He arrived pale and trembling. Nathan, Laura began. Your brother admitted being at the scene when Emily died. He says he wasn't alone. Were you involved? Nathan bowed his head, voice faint. I didn't mean for this. I was just messing around. Laura tapped the table. Messing around? Explain. Nathan took a shaky breath. On December 15, 2022, he met Emily outside Brew Haven after her shift. Drunk, he teased her, but she shoved him and ran. Angry, he called Michael to teach her a lesson. I didn't think he'd do it, Nathan choked. Michael dragged her to the site. I followed, saw him hit her head with the bar. She fell, didn't move. I panicked and ran. Ryan, behind the glass, punched the wall, tears streaming. Laura pressed on. So you let Michael hide her? Nathan nodded. I couldn't tell anyone. He said we'd both be done if I talked. Laura documented it, torn between fury and pity. Nathan didn't kill Emily, but his cowardice enabled it. She arrested him for aiding and failing to report a crime. With Nathan's confession and the bar's evidence, Laura pieced together Michael's motive. Old records showed Michael had hit on Emily at Brew Haven months before her disappearance, only to be rejected. Nathan confirmed Michael resented her for mocking him as a loser in front of co-workers. On April 6, 2024, Laura faced Michael in his cell. Michael, you killed Emily not just for Nathan. You liked her, didn't you? And she turned you down. Michael cackled, eyes wild. She thought she was better, always acting superior. I just wanted her quiet, but once the bar hit her head, I couldn't stop. Nathan freaked, but I knew how to hide her. That site was perfect. Laura stood still, a death sparked by jealousy and wounded pride. She left, weighed down. The case was nearly over, but at a steep cost. The trial of Michael and Nathan Brooks took place in late April 2024 at El Paso County Courthouse. Michael was convicted of first-degree murder, sentenced to life without parole. Nathan got 10 years for aiding and concealing the crime. The Watsons sat in the front row, Susan sobbing at the verdict, Robert staring blankly. Ryan Parker stood outside, clutching Emily's silver ring. He didn't enter, unwilling to face the men who took her. After the crowd dispersed, he drove to St. Mary's Cemetery, where Emily rested again. Kneeling at her grave, he placed the ring on her headstone. "I found them, Emily," he whispered. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. Rest now." A spring breeze carried the scent of dry grass and silence. Ryan stood, walking away with a pain that would never fade. The case was closed, justice served, but Emily remained an unfillable void in his heart.